Okay, let's go ahead and begin, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. All praises due to Allah. We send peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and upon all his family and companions. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight for this program. This is the fourth event in a series of public events organized by the Islamic Society of Santa Barbara as part of Palestine Solidarity Week. And the purpose of this specific event is to highlight Palestinian perspectives from within our own community and to shed light on their own human experiences. So we have three panelists who will be speaking tonight, inshallah. Sebaah Hamad and Brother Hossin Shaqur, along with his mother, and Nabil Alshurafa. And I'll be introducing each of them right before they speak, inshallah. And all of them have lived in Santa Barbara or have connections with family in Santa Barbara County and Gaza or the West Bank. And so we think it's very important for Palestinians to be speaking for themselves, especially as their oppressors for over 75 years have continued to dehumanize them, humiliate them, silence them and their allies, as well as take their land, appropriate their culture, and brutalize and massacre their children, men and women, as we see in Gaza today. So their struggle, for liberation, as many of us know, did not begin on October 7th. And if you're just kind of tuning into what's happening in that region, today will be an opportunity, inshallah, to learn a little about the history, the early history since the founding of Israel in 1948, and maybe before that as well. Before we begin, I'd like to share some community guidelines and opportunities for participation. So firstly, we ask everyone to please turn on their videos, at least to start, inshallah, so we know who's joining us. Also, please make sure that your full name is visible, as well as where you're joining us from. And to avoid any disruption for our speakers, please ensure that you're always on mute when the speakers are talking. And we'd like to ensure also a safe space for our panel. So if anyone disrupts the event with any inappropriate or malicious content, they will be asked to leave, or admins will have to remove them. We have a full program tonight, and we might not have sufficient time at the end for discussion. So I encourage anyone who has questions or thoughts to please utilize the chat box throughout the event, which Sister Sarah Nasir will be monitoring throughout the program, inshallah. And also, if you could specify which speaker you're directing your question to in the chat box, that would be great. After each speaker, we'll have a few minutes to answer some questions, inshallah. So please make sure to write your questions in the chat box by the time each speaker is done. And Brother Hossein, is Sheikh Abdul Ghani available to start with Quran recitation? Brother Abdul Ghani, are you with us right now? If, Sister Sarah, are you able to unmute Brother Hossein? Or?
Okay, I think Sheikh Abdul Ghani is with us. I think he's the 00.
Okay, 00QQ. Okay. Sheikh Abdul Ghani, are you available to start, inshallah, with Quran recitation?
Maybe not. Let me call.
I'm asking him to unmute. Just give me a few seconds. And I've asked to unmute Sheikh Abdul Ghani, if you can.
I think he's gonna just read from my phone.
Okay.
شيخ عبد الغني اقرأ وانت على السبيكر يا شيخ عبد الغني.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. يا يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. ولا تقولوا قتلوا في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. ولا تقولوا قتلوا في سبيل أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين. وبشر الصابرين الذين هم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله
Brother, are you there?
Sheikh Abdul Ghani, are you still there? We lost you. Okay. Okay, inshallah, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Abdul Ghani. Inshallah, we will continue. That was a very beautiful recitation, mashallah, and very soothing and comforting for the soul and the heart right now. Alhamdulillah. Oh, okay, Bismillah. So, inshallah, God willing, we will transition to our first speaker, Sebaah Hamad. Sebaah Hamad is a PhD student in the Comparative Literature program at UC Santa Barbara, and she works on Palestine, Indigenous, trauma, memory, spatial, and Black studies. Seba's MA thesis was titled Poetics of Memory and Space in Palestinian Women's Life Writings, and her prospective dissertation is titled Intimacy of Place, Contemporary Palestinian Cartographic and Affective Narratives. She has an MA in Comparative Literature from UCSB and a BA in English Literature from Lemoyne College. Sebaah, the floor is yours, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. May I please get sharing privileges so that I can share my PowerPoint?
Yes, Sister Sarah will do that for you, inshallah.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Sebaah Hamad, and my presentation is titled The Denial of Palestinians as a People, because I think, as Sister Naela talked about in the beginning, to really understand what has been happening in the past 10, 11 days is to really understand the roots of the issue, which precedes even the Nakba. I'm sorry, I'm still unable to share my screen.
Bear with me, Sister Sebaah.
No.
Go ahead and continue. Inshallah, I'll figure it out and send it to you.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, so my main argument is that the erasure of Palestinians as a political and developmental community begins before the start of the 1948 Nakba or catastrophe. One way in which Palestinians resist erasure is through the production of knowledge and the creation of archives. I have three main sections in my presentation. First, I'll be discussing the denial of Palestinians as a people. Second, I'll be talking about my father's village, Saris. And then I will conclude with some remarks about the ongoing Nakba.
Go ahead and try.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So first we'll begin with this idea of the Holy Land, right, and the construction of the Holy Land, particularly through European travel logs and historical geographies, which was predicated on the separation of land from the indigenous population. So images, maps, and narratives all describe the Holy Land divorced from it, the people that were actively living on the land. And those that did talk about the Palestinians talked about them as uncivilized, as barbaric, and as unhuman, as subhuman, as the type of language we're hearing today in the news outlets. The borders of the British Mandate of Palestine mirrored the borders delineated in Holy Land maps of the 19th century. So these Holy Land maps facilitated the borders of the British Mandate of Palestine, which helps us understand that the erasure of the indigenous population in reconstructions of a biblical past justified British colonialism in the 20th century. Bashara Dumani, a Palestinian scholar, writes, "The amazing ability to discover the land without discovering the people dovetailed neatly with early Zionist visions. In the minds of many Europeans, especially Zionist Jews, Palestine was empty before the arrival of the first wave of Jewish settlers in 1881 to 1884. As a student who has taken classes on Hebrew literature, this is something that is often discussed by Israelis who demonstrate their shock of being promised a land that was empty, but coming to a land full of people and civilization. Bashari Dumani asserts that the very creation of a Palestinian state by the British through the League of Nations was predicated upon the carefully crafted denial of the existence of Palestinians as a political community. Just as the denial of Palestinians as a people was used to justify the British Mandate of Palestine, so was it used to justify and facilitate Zionist settler colonialism. In this section, I'll be talking about Shireen Saikali's monograph, Men of Capital. She is a professor at UC Santa Barbara, and if you are a student at UCSB, I highly encourage you to take her classes. Shireen Saikali argues in Men of Capital that the mandate period was riddled with mismanagement. The British colonial government ruled Palestinians with apathy and neglect and did not make concerted efforts to govern their colonial subjects until World War I. The British mandate never considered Palestinians as developmental subjects and codified their erasure by referring to Palestinians as non-Jewish in the 1917 Balfour Declaration. Notably, the document only refers to Palestinian civil and religious, not political rights. As cyclically reveals, the Balfour Declaration instated British commitment to settler colonialism, making Mandate Palestine an exceptional case. Here we see the letter written by Arthur James Balfour in 1917, declaring his sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, and once again calling the indigenous population in Palestine as the non-Jewish communities, and also ignoring their political rights. Cyclically situates her arguments in Men of Capital through an analysis of political strategies used by the British colonial power to simultaneously ignore Palestinian development and support Jewish Zionist infrastructure and economy. So once again, the Zionist state of Israel was not simply created out of an empty bubble in 1948, but rather its infrastructures were placed well before 1948 and supported by the British government. By the 1920s, the British government in Palestine legitimized Zionist institutions such as the Jewish Agency, Jewish National Fund, Histadrut Haganah, and Vad Leumi. The colonial power supported by the Yeshuvs, or the Jewish community's economy, by tariff manipulation, and granted three major monopolies to Zionist interests: electricity, Dead Sea salt, and salt. Moreover, several Zionist industries were also granted concessions by the British, such as Nesher Cement Company, Palestine Oil Industry, the Delphiners Silk Factory, and British support of Zionist economy resulted in the Yishuv having more expertise and capital than the colonial power after World War II. So just to rephrase that, the British colonial power supported the Zionist infrastructures and their economy so much so that even the British economy and the British capital was less supported. So the British prioritized Zionist infrastructures and economy over their own. In 1940, after not supporting agriculture infrastructure, the British colonial power unevenly distributed loans to Jewish and Arab farmers. While citrus loans were split almost equally between Jewish and Arab farmers, the British government distributed all non-citrus loans to only Jewish farmers. This, quote, was despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of agricultural land devoted to grains, vegetables, and fruit was in Arab hands. Another scholar of Palestinian studies, Fayyaz Sayegh, wrote in Zionist Colonialism in Palestine about the British support of Zionist infrastructure. The mandate powers recognized the World Zionist Organization as a representative of Jewish agency, supported massive Zionist immigration, transferred state lands to Zionists, protected Zionist institutions, permitted and condoned the creation of schools, military groups such as Haganah, terrorist organizations such as Stern Group and Argonne, and trained mobile striking forces. Once again, the British mandate powers was training Zionist military forces, while at the same time imprisoning and killing Arabs during the Arab Revolt of 1936 and 1939, and also preventing Palestinians from carrying any weaponry. This is very important when we come to 1948, where Palestinians are very vulnerable. Many of their own fighters are in prison, have been murdered, and once again, their weaponry has been taken from them. The Palestinian majority were denied similar facilities and, quote, deprived of the means of self-protection. The support for Zionist infrastructures, including armed forces, and the Yishuv, or Jewish community, facilitated a transfer of power from the British mandate to the new Zionist settler colonial state of Israel in 1948. In the next section, I'll be talking about my father's village, Sidis, a village 15 kilometers west of Jerusalem. Sidis was established by Palestinians from a larger nearby village, Beit Mahsir. Sirtis is known as Arus Bab al-Wad, or the Bride of the Gate of the Valley. This is an important point because Sirtis, while it was a small village, because of its location, was very important to the theft of Jerusalem lands. In 1596, there were 282 Palestinian residents in Sirtis, and in 1948, there were 650 residents in 157 houses. In April 1948, the Zionist militia Haganah destroyed the village of Sirtis. As you can see here, this is a plow, and one of the first ways in which I began to understand where my family comes from, Sirtis, is through my father's stories. And he told me that that one of the stories that was passed on to him was a neighbor witnessing a pregnant woman being murdered as she and her limp dead body on top of the plow. So this is, this traumatic memory was passed down through generations as a way to remember the Nakba and to resist the erasure of Palestinians and also the erasure of Israeli crimes. The British Survey of Palestine, established in 1920, facilitated Zionist settler colonialism through their extensively detailed maps. These maps were used by Zionists to structure their transfer plans and establish ownership claims. Zionist use of these detailed maps clearly rejects colonial myths that Palestinians did not exist. The denial of Palestinians as a people, a political collective by various cartographic and narrative constructions of the land is key to understanding the ongoing Nakba. As you see here on the left, it's a 1946 British survey map of Palestine where all of the villages and towns have the indigenous names. Here we see Sirtis, and on the right, as an Israeli map, 3 years after the Nakba, same map, but the names have been changed to Hebrew names. For instance, Sirtis has now become Shoeva, which is a Zionist settlement. This is a modern Google map of the area. The Jewish-only village Shorish and the settlement Shoeva are built on the destroyed Palestinian village of Sirtis. Another way in which I began to learn more about Sirtis is through Jeanne Coulter's 2013 film, Searching for Sirtis. For a very small village, it was very surprising for me to find that an entire film was dedicated to searching for it, both in a metaphorical sense and also in a physical sense. I'd like to show a short video from the documentary.
النكبة اسم من الموت لبني آدم، أثرت عليه كأن اسم من الموت. أخذ من حياته النص وضل النص، يعني عيشة ذليلة بقى. يتصور للواحد أيام مرت عنا زي القطران مرة، أختي ما يقدر الناس يكاوموا دبابات وكاوموا مدافع وكاوموا يشر. شردنا من سريس وضلنا نمشي والهدم ورانا، وين ما يلوحوا في بلادي هدم. والله ايش اسمه هذا طباليش الحصيدة، كان عندي واحدة منهم كلها سحلية، مش كلوش، كان من زمان غالية يعني هذه ما فرطتش فيها، ضليت انصحيها لأهلي عشان أرجع وأحصد، وتمالي بحصد. هذه المعلومات اللي شفناها بزماننا، ولا دار اللي ظل يتآوى فيها الواحد.
This Nakba survivor, who is left unnamed in the film Searching for Cities, talks throughout the film, and in one scene she talks about how she can see her village right in front of her. She says, if only it would happen that we return. I can now picture that this is where our house was. That land is ours. That's ours. That is so-and-so ours. That is so-and-so's house. This is our neighbor's house. One pictures everything as though one is seeing it, as though I'm seeing it in front of me. The speaker is using both obscure information to describe something that she can see very clearly, while also talking about how this hope for return is almost unspeakable, and because the trauma is untranslatable. And so this is something that, you know, when she's talking about the very detailed images that she sees in her mind, she's also claiming ownership of a land that the audience members are unable to even imagine, unlike her, who can see it very clearly. These stills, the top still is from Janan Coulter's film Searching for Cities, and the bottom still is from an interview with a Nakba survivor who is from Cities, Ibrahim Matah. It's from an interview called Cities Muhajjara, or the diasporic or the migrants village of Cities. And it was these two sources that really helped me in my own search for cities. As you in this interview with Ibrahim Matah, it is the imagery of Ibrahim Matah, an interviewer, going through the gates and going through cities that helps me identify how to enter cities when I visited in 2022. And also in Palestine Remembered, the images of the vineyards and the description of how the last remaining house in cities is in is near the vineyards. So these are stills from a video I took in 2022 as we entered, and once again we were unable to find the entrance until I watched for like the 10th time Ibrahim Matah's interview. And the last remaining house is enclosed by a fence, and I was unable to see the house without, you know, jumping the fence. So I went ahead and I jumped the fence so that I could see it. These are all pictures that I took. These the slide and the following slides. As you can see, how the house is partially destroyed. And also what really struck me was the fruit that those who are unable to return to cities because they were violently expelled from the lands. These are the fruit that they mourn, and yet they're left dried on these lands. So particularly the almond really struck me because it's one of my father's favorites. Things to eat, and here it is right outside the last remaining house, dried up. In this interview, Ibrahim Matah sings a song about the grapes, and I've translated it here. All my village's grapes constantly darkening, I will be generous and call for you, all the village children. And I also interviewed Ibrahim Matah in the summer of 2022. And one of the things that he shared is that when he returned, so he left Cities when he was 11 years old, and he witnessed, you know, the massacre of his beloved land. And when he returned as an adult and he walked the same land, the same road of his childhood, He started to cry as he remembered his grandfather and remembered his life in cities, remembered how he used to pray in the mosque and how everything was taken away from him. And he now lives in Mukhayyim Kalandia, the refugee camp outside Kalandia, right next to the Kalandia checkpoint. So just as a summary of how I came across the knowledge that was really taken away from me of cities by the Israeli occupation, first is through oral history, through my father's stories, then through the website Palestine Remembered, which acts as an archive, and then Palestine Open Maps. And then Junaid Coulter's 2013 film, Searching for Cities. And after that, I began to look for a Palestinian village history book on cities. I also looked at online videos of interviews with Nakba survivors, particularly cities. And then I returned to cities in the summer of 2022. And it was very heartbreaking to see the Jewish Zionist settlement and village taking over this Palestinian village. And then finally, I ended the summer of 2022 with interviews with Nakba survivors from cities. One woman told me that the most horrific image that stays with her until today is that she saw Zionist militia nail down like nails into the eyes of Palestinians. And she's well into her 90s, and she was crying remembering this image. So my father was born in Mukhayyim Kalandia, and this is where I will end really. I'm just going to show a very short snippet of the checkpoint, not the entirety of it, but I just wanted to say that, the villagers from 52 different villages, instead of living in their villages, they're living in a refugee camp that is constantly surveyed. Constantly, Israeli occupation forces are entering and demolishing homes and killing Palestinians. And when my father was a teenager in high school, they came into his house without any reason and arrested him. And the Israeli soldier told him, "Look, you're not going to finish the high school exit exams." And my father replied, "Well, actually, this is not my senior year. I'm not going to be taking the exit exams." So the Israeli soldier was so pleased that he would be destroying the future of a young man. When my father got out of prison, it was the thing that stayed in his mind that helped encourage him to finish high school, to finish the exit exams, and to become a pharmacist today. So I'll end here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sebaah. Jazakallah khair for sharing some of the history and these very sad and heartbreaking stories. Right now, we will open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, inshallah, please go ahead and write them in the chat box. Or if someone would like to ask, you can go ahead, inshallah, maybe Sister Sarah can unmute you. And preferably in the chat box if anyone has any questions. So I'll give you a moment to write down the questions in the chat box if you'd like, inshallah. Okay, inshallah, if Sebaah gives us permission, inshallah, we can go ahead and share the presentation with the community, inshallah. Thank you, Brother Bassem, for requesting that. Okay. Okay, any questions? I don't see any yet, just some comments. Thank you all for sharing your comments. Okay, if there are no questions, inshallah, we can go ahead and move on with the program. Our next speaker is Brother Hossin Shaqur, who will be speaking along with his mother, Al-Abd Zahir, who is a Nakba survivor as well. And Brother Hossin also helped translate her words for us, inshallah. So just some background about Brother Hossin. Brother Hossin, who grew up in Qatar, was born in the Jabaliya camp in the Gaza Strip in Palestine. He received his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering at Cal State Fullerton. Hossin worked as an insurance business manager at AAA for 10 years and has over 2 decades of experience in the insurance industry. He is the founder and current CEO of Shaqur National Inc. Brother Hossin, you're welcome to speak.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to share a life story today with my mother that she lived through the Nakba, and of course she was moved from her village to Jabalia camp. So I'm just going to give you like a little brief history about Brayer. Brayer, I don't know if Sister Sebaah has a little picture of the map of the village. Okay, this is our village, Brayer. Brayer is the one in green, and it's one of the biggest villages in that area, and it's basically the northern part of Gaza, and Brayer is a village in historical Palestine. At that time in 1948, we're guesstimating the population of Brayer about 2,000 people. Now, the main income for that village was just from agriculture, and it was basically, we had a lot of olive trees in that village. But in 1948, they established camps in Palestine, and one of the camps that they established when they took over all these villages that you see in the map was Jabalia camp. And Jabalia camp is the northern part of Gaza, and it is basically the front of Gaza if there is a war or a ground war is going to break to the one that they've been threatening to do like for the past few days. Jabalia camp was established in 1948, as I mentioned, and it is the most populated area in the world. I don't know exactly how many people live in that camp right now, but in 1982, we had about 800,000 people living in that camp. So I can only imagine since then how many people live in there. So I'm just gonna have my mom share the story, like when they took over the village, what happened, and I'll be able to translate inshallah. يما احكي لنا قصتك لما دخلوا اليهود علينا في برير.
أنا عمري كان 7 سنين لما طلعنا.
So she was about.
خش علينا اليهود وإحنا كنا مجموعين في الغرفة.
So she was about 6 to 7 years old at that time when the Jewish people came to the house, and they were, of course, they heard a lot of gunfires outside, and they were all gathered in a room.
خش علينا في الغرفة أول في قاعد دار طب طخ، بعدين خشوا في الغرفة اللي إحنا فيها كمان طب طخ. تحيرنا وين نروح يعني. صرفت شو فيها، قالت أمي خليكوا في التبن. تلتنا بالتبن أنا وأختي.
So they entered the house and they started shooting like in the air, and they didn't know what to do, where to hide. And I kind of heard the story several times, like maybe I can add some colors to the story. They had a barn, and my grandfather, her father, had over 50 sheep and goats, and he had some cows and all that stuff. So my grandmother, and this is what she said now, she asked her and her sister to go to the barn and hide in the hay pile. تخبيتوا في التبن يا أمه بعدين.
خبينا في التبن أنا وأختي. عادت بدهم يطلعونا هم. صرفت شغل غرفة يعني شغل إيش فيها. بعدين أخوي وكمان واحد كانوا من زمان يحطوا يعني زي الخابية هيك يحطوا فيها القمح والشعير والأشياء هذه. اندب هو والزلمة في الخابية.
So also there is her brother.
قعدوا جوا في الخابية، وبعدين أجوا يطلعوا فوق الخابية نزلوا، ما عرفوش من البسطار يطلعوا، نزلوا هم الاثنين، واحد اختياره أخويا. المهم ما عرفوش يطلع، كل ما يطلع شربح يقع. قال لهم في الخابية هذاك وإحنا طلعنا. طلعونا وين على المدرسة.
خلينا نترجم. So also she had a brother, his name was Hossin as well, and there was another man from the neighborhood. Also they were trying to hide because they were looking for the men to kill them. So they ran away to the barn, and they just couldn't escape from the barn. So they stayed in the barn. And then with all the gunfires, her and her sister and her mom, they basically had the gunfires to their back, and they asked them to move to an elementary school, or the only school that they had at that time. طيب ودوك على المدرسة بعدين يلا.
احنا طلعنا من الغرفة الساعة، طلعنا من الغرفة صار فتشوا فيها. أنا وأختي كنا مدفونين في التبن، دفنتنا أمي في التبن في قاع الغرفة. بعدين ما لقوش هذه بأختي عاملة وقاه هيك بتاع زمان، يعني فيها عشار فيها ذهب وما بعرف ايش. المهم مكركشة، طلعتها بدهم ياخذوها ما خذوهاش، طلعوا فيها ما خذوهاش. قالت أمي اطلعوا، طيب اطلعوا من هذه الدار من الغرفة. ورحنا طلعنا طب طخ في الجمل في قاع الدار، وطلعنا هم خذونا عادة وودونا على المدرسة.
So they, of course, when they asked them to go to the school, they couldn't gather any of their belongings. The only thing that they were gathered, her mom had a little kind of like it wasn't even a box. It was just like a piece of cloth, and it had some jewelry, and that's the only thing that they were able. They were hiding it because they wanted to take it with them. So they did take it with them, and then on their way out from the barn, they had a camel, and they killed the camel in the middle of the house.
بعدين ودونا، طلعنا من الدار، والجمل طخوا في قاع الدار، وطلعنا من الدار. ودونا وين على المدرسة. في هناك جيش، يعني كانوا فوق السطح، يعني جيش مصريين وسودانيين. من حد ما حطونا في المدرسة، طب طخ في اللي فوق، هذول فوق السطح، مش عارف 4 ولا هم 5 كانوا فوق. المهم إيش يعني في روح وفي مش روح، يعني في يتنازل على طول يعني. وسحبنا حالنا وطلعنا وين بعد ما نظفوا الدنيا. طلعونا على المدرسة هذا أحكي عنها، وطلينا قاعدين. جابوا حلاوة وصاروا يفرقوا علينا، قال عشان نسكت وإحنا بنصيح قاعدين، والصغار بيصيحوا، الختيارية وولاد صغار نسوان كبار، يعني هيك. هذا ما فيش شباب ولا في شيء، بس هيك. المهم قالوا اطلعوا. طلعنا من المدرسة ورحنا وين؟ في بلد اسمها سمسم، ما بعرف درسنيد، ما بعرف. المهم طلعنا من هنا يعني.
طب خلينا نترجم هذا بعدين نكمل. Okay, so when they took them to the school, on the roof of the school, there was at that time there was an Arab army was fighting, and some of those people were from Sudan, and other people were from Egypt. And she witnessed, they cut them from the roof, and they shot them. And when they shot them, some of them were kind of alive, and some of them are dead. And of course, all the kids, they were crying, and all the older women and men, they were crying. So the Jewish people kind of had lollipops. That's what she remembers, and they gave it to them and to the kids, so they will stop crying. So it was an awful scenery, and after that they asked them to leave the village, and this was the beginning of migration from Breyer to Jabalia camp. But before that, they went to a neighbor village which was called Simsim. Simsim, يما؟
أول ما طلعنا على مش نجد اسمها
There is
درسنا
another, yeah, there is like 3 villages, and she remembers that she went to a small village called Dar Sneed, and then there is Nijid, another village, and then to Simsim, and this was on the way to the camp.
بعدين طلعنا على بيت حنون.
And there was another village called Beit Hanun. So this is the purple color was Nijid. This is where they started, and this is, and then like Simsim. Simsim is the one in yellow. بعدين رحت على بيت حنون يما. بيت حنون.
بيت حنون بعدين طلعنا على غزة.
Yeah,
جباليا.
Beit Hanun is the one that Sebaah is circling here, and this is basically the village is border with Jabalia camp.
ظلنا في جباليا بعدين ظلنا فيها بعدين رحنا على غزة عودنا رجعنا على جباليا.
طيب, and then like after that from Beit Hanun they landed in Jabalia. ما كيف كان المخيم أول ما دخلتوا؟ إيش كان عندكم في المخيم؟
ولا شيء.
شو كان خيمة يعني ولا؟
قعدنا عند الناس أول بعدين جابونا مش عارف خيمة ولا مش عارف المهم زي هيك يعني قعدونا في أشياء دلوقتي.
So there was not an assigned plot or spot for them when they first arrived to Jabalia. So somebody was already there before them, and they hosted them for كم يوم يما قعدوا عندهم؟
قعدونا مش عارف والله يمكن شهرين ولا 3 أشهر ما بعرف.
So they were hosted by another refugee family about 2 to 3 months. They don't know exactly until they got them their spot or plot or space. طيب كيف كانت العيشة في جباليا يما؟ شو كيف
كانوا يعملوا فش حطب فش أشياء يعني خبزوا كانوا يطلعوا لهم خبز من حد ما وصلنا يعني يجيبوا خبز يفرقوا علينا.
مين اللي كان
أهل
يفرق؟
البلد. أهل البلد صاروا يفرقوا علينا خبز يعني وطحين هيك عشان نخبز هيك يعني. بعدين طلعت الأشياء هذه صاروا يطلعونا بس.
So it was very difficult in the beginning, of course, because they didn't have anything to cook with, and basically whoever was living there, they used to give them like, from what they had, and mainly bread, and like, eventually they started getting some flowers, and they started making their own food, of course. Just FYI, my mom never went to school, of course, because of the migration. So she doesn't know how to read or write, either in Arabic or English. We don't know exactly her age, but all we remember, we know my dad's age. He was 12 years old when he left Breyer. And according to him, we were thinking that she was about to attend school before the invasion of the Israeli people. So, all her life, just basically like since 6 years old until 1967, she lived in the camp. And then my dad somehow was able to get a job in Qatar. And this is when we moved to Qatar. I think I will open it for question. Probably some people have questions at this time. في أي حاجة ما بدك تضيفيها كمان؟
لا بس ايش بدنا هاللي شفناه هاي اللي شفناه.
So this is the
فتحوا
life.
لنا طريق واحدة بس يعني فيش كل البلد هذا البلاد يعني.
طب انت كنت
طريق
قلتي لي قبل يعني انه طخوا اخوانك الاثنين كمان.
هذا بعد لما نموهم لما نموهم الشباب هذول نموهم في غرفة مش عارفة كم نفر، طخوهم. بعدين جينا ندور عليهم ما لقيناهم إلا هم في درع مسلمين.
ميتين.
طخينهم في درع مسلمين.
So during the evacuation of the people from Brer, also at that time she lost two of her brothers, and because they gathered them in one of the rooms in their house, and after they killed them or they shot them, it's like there was like a big group of people, and then they tried to go find them, and they found them in her uncle's house, dead.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Hossein, and to your mother for sharing her experiences. It's very hard to carry that trauma of violence and being uprooted from her land, and to see history kind of repeating itself again. If you could also just share with us, as everyone is thinking of any questions to ask, your experience with your family in Gaza today. Can you share a little bit about what's happening there with your family?
Okay. Since the invasion started, or like the war broke out in Gaza, first day we lost a nephew. His name was Maysara. He's 25 years old. He was recently married for 2 months. His wife is pregnant, and 2 to 3 days later, my brother in Turkey was, of course, as every Palestinian or every Muslim right now, is just glued to the TV. He was watching Al Jazeera, and he heard they announced, like, a building with 4-story. It was a 4-story building that they bombed it, and they said the family name, it was Abu Shkayyan, which is like my dad's family. That's their cousin. And of course, my brother tried his best. This is before they cut the electricity and the water. Tried his best to find out, because we thought it was my sister. My sister lives in the camp right now. And we thought because it was very close, the location was close to my sister. So he was able to find out it was my father's cousins. And later on, we found out they were able to identify 31 people in this building. But in the building, I mean, there's like, I think about 10 people or so. Until now, they don't know what happened to them. Just 2 days ago, about 2 days ago also, they bombed Beit Lahia. Beit Lahia is the northern part of Jabalia. And two families of my mom's side from the Zahir family, they were killed. We were able to get 8 names of the Zahir family. I posted it in the Arab group, and one of them was a doctor, young doctor. So the situation now, my sister is in the camp. She has 3 daughters that they're married. Their husbands are not with them. The daughters, they moved from their homes, and they're staying with my sister, because my sister lives in closer to a school, and they think it's safer there. Wallahu a'lam. One of my nieces is pregnant, and she is not able to do a normal delivery, so she really needs to have a surgery, and she's due any minute, anytime. So the situation is extremely sad and bad right now. She has about 50 people in the house, maybe more than that, and she has her son, her oldest son, Abdurrahman. During the World Cup, Qatar opened, they made it easier for tourists to go visit. So it was for his first time ever leaving Jabalia camp, and he went to Qatar, and he's with my sister in Qatar right now. And this war broke out, and he's extremely depressed. He wishes that he is with his family, and his mom, of course, talks to him that she's afraid that she's gonna die any minute. That's like the situation with every Palestinian in Gaza right now, and she thinks that she's not gonna see her son again. As far as food, I think I mean, everybody in the camp, they usually like save, what you call it, like they save some certain foods that they last, like adas, like lentils and flowers and stuff like that. But right now, it's like they ran out. She has like more than 50 people, and no water, no electricity. I mean, before the war broke out, they used to get electricity 6 hours a day, and that was for several years. So there is no such thing that I'm keeping my meat in the fridge or in the freezer or what have you. It's just like they have to live day by day. So right now they have no electricity at all. So every once in a while we're able to connect with them. We have a group chat with my nieces, and we ask them, how in the heck are you charging your phones? And they're saying they charge their phones with car batteries. So
inshallah, they're very resourceful.
Sure.
It's subhanAllah, I'm imagining everyone who's attending, it's very difficult to hear these stories, and it's horrific to see and hear of family and friends who and our community members like Brother Hossin, who have their entire families in this situation, and some who are entirely wiped out and who can't access healthcare and medical aid. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give Gazans access to water and food and aid from where they would never expect. And may Allah have mercy on the martyrs and grant any family they left behind patience to endure this tragic loss. Does anyone have any questions for Brother Hossin that you'd like to put in the chat box? And his mother as well, inshallah. If anyone, I'll give you a moment to do that, inshallah.
عندهم أي سؤال؟
Okay, we do have a few questions. Sister Sarah, would you like to share them? I'm not able to see them right now.
I have crying babies in the background, so if I need to mute myself, I'll do so. So there's a question from Sebaah, and she's asking, do you remember what you were wearing when you left the village? This is for Khalti. And did you lose or forget someone behind you when you left the village?
لما في سؤال إلك بقول لك لما طلعتي من البرير تتذكري إيش كنتي لابسة؟
أسطوانة صغيرة هيك كذا لبسونا 6 سنين 7 سنين إيش بدي أكون لابس يعني وبراسنا.
So she remembers that she wasn't wearing a hijab.
براسنا.
She was about 6 years old, and she just had a dress, and that's the only thing that she left with. طب احكي لهم قصة لما أخذوا المجوهرات من عندكم وصاروا يحارنوا فيكم فيهم.
محطين المصفحات هذول تبعاتهم إن شاء الله يخربوا على رؤوسهم. صفينها الشكات تبعت النسوان على بوز السيارة، وحاطينها المناديل الحرير تبعت الحج عليها كمان، وصاروا الأساور الفضة هذول تاع زمان لابساتهم وصاروا يقولون هيك فيهن، يعني بحرنوا فينا هيك فيهن.
We forgot to mention this part that I mean we mentioned that
يعني لما شافونا صارت هيك نسوي فيهن، يعني طلعوها في أساور في ايدينا.
the little
ولدي الحرير تاعت الحج هذول كان حاطين على بوز السيارة. كلش عندهم عاملين.
So the little jewelry thing that they had, and that the Jewish people ended up taking it from them. And they, when they were taking, like when they were like, leading them to exit the village, they were wearing them, the men wearing the jewelry, and like, and they were taunting them like this, telling the ladies and the girls, and they were also putting all the jewelry
والشكات تبعت النسوان
and their
لابسات
cars.
وجع قلوبهم إن شاء الله.
And like, and all they had to see is just like they would see this, and like they would cry, and they're like, they're not even, they're just capturing their stuff, but they're taunting.
لما شافونا صاروا كله هيك يعني النسوان هذا المصفحة معجزة يعني لابسات
So doing this, like, look, what we have your jewelry kind of.
ما دي الحرير تبعت الحج هذول كان حبوز السيارة وحاطين الشكات تحت النسوان.
And their mandils, the mandils that they had, like they used to have like some really nice mandils from Hajj, from Mecca. And they used to have it like as flags and their cars. And back to the question, she was just wearing a dress without anything on her head as 6 years old girl.
هذا أشياء كثير الله لا يبارك لهم إن شاء الله.
من غير سب يا الله، من غير سب.
الله يبارك لهم.
SubhanAllah, between laughing and crying these days. SubhanAllah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Hossein.
وإياكم إن شاء الله.
So inshallah, our last speaker is Brother Nabil Alshurafa. Brother Nabil is the former president of the Islamic Society of Santa Barbara, having served from 2008 to 2011. Nabil lives in Chicago, Illinois, with his wife and 3 children, and he is a computer scientist by training and is currently working as a medical researcher and professor. He received his BS, MS, and PhD from UCLA in computer science, and his mother, Naela Elshurafa, who lives in Camarillo, traveled to Palestine for 10 days and has been stuck there since Israel started bombarding Gaza. And Nabil also has a special needs sister and a nephew who is Naela's grandson, who is also special needs. And they both rely heavily on her help, and they're anxiously waiting for her return. So inshallah, we'll hear from Brother Nabil now. Sister Sarah, can you unmute Brother Nabil?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How are you doing? Thank you so much for inviting me to tell you our story, my mother's story, really, and what, the nightmare we've been going through the past 10 days. It's first, I just want to thank Hossin and his mother. What a beautiful story. I mean, just to hear, I lost my one grandma. I have one grandmother left. I lost both my grandfathers and my grandmother. So now I just have the one left now in Gaza to tell me some of the stories of the past. So may Allah protect her for you and for everyone. Bismillah. All right. So where do I start? Okay. So mom decides she wants to go see her sick grandmother. Right, and my grandmother, her sick mother, in Gaza, and so she wanted to go for about 10 days. She left behind. She lives with my sister and her special needs son, so her grandson, who she takes care of in Camarillo, California, which is about an hour south of, or an hour, an hour south of Santa Barbara. So when she told us that she's heading to Gaza, we're like, okay. She went through Egypt through the Rafah border, and was enjoying her time with their family. And then day 7, the war broke out, and immediately my brother and I was actually, this was a Saturday, I was heading to the airport to go to a conference in Cancun, Mexico, and immediately we find out that mom is. Basically, this war broke out, and so immediately we knew, all right, this is, we're used to this, right? We've seen this in 2014. We had a similar situation when my dad, Allah yarhamu, he passed away last year, when he and my mom were trapped there, and it took about a month and a half for us to try to get them out. So we have, experience, right? As Palestinians, we sort of have this inevitable experience where of being stuck and needing some saving. So she arrived. So basically, she was there. War broke out. We told her, "Mom, get out. I don't care." She told us. So Saturday, the Rafah border is usually closed. Sunday, it opens. We're like, just get out right away. I don't care. She was supposed to leave on Tuesday. We're like, just get out. So right away she goes. Sunday, she tries her best to get out. Thousands, so many people are trying to get out of Gaza, right? They know that there's going to be a disproportionate retaliation. This we know, time and time again, right? They kill one person, they have to kill, 10 or hundreds, right, on the other side. So, hundreds of Palestinians, thousands right now. And so we told her, Mom, get out. So Sunday she tries to get out. They tell her, don't worry, you're scheduled for Tuesday, go back home. She spent the whole day, right? So she leaves that night and heads back. Now, Monday, they start bombing heavily, right? And Tuesday, we're praying, right? Our entire family, we're like, Inshallah, ya Rab, ya Rab, nighttime is for prayer, daytime for action, right? And so we're praying that Tuesday she gets out. She goes in the morning. We're so excited. I'm in Cancun. I'm preparing for my presentation. I'm calling every half hour, every hour, my uncle. I'm like, okay, did she leave? Yes, alhamdulillah, she left. Okay, did she arrive? Now he has the driver he's connecting with. At this time, they still have cell tower connection, right? And cell phones are functioning. Now this is not the case. So she arrives. On the Palestinian side, they stamp her passport. She's about to exit to get to the Egyptian side, and Israel bombs I think 3 bombs or so bombs the Rafah border to smithereens. They basically immediately shut the border. No one's allowed to leave. So Mom now has to go back to her mother's house. And you guys have seen, Hussein showed you where Jabalia is, which is the north. You also have the southern part of Gaza, and Rafah is on the southern part. The Erez border, which gets us to Israel, to cross into Israel, is on the northern part. So this is why Jabalia and a lot of these northern parts get hit pretty heavily. My grandmother's just south of that, without naming cities for now, but she's just south of basically in the main Gaza city. Anyways, as she's going back now, my mom narrates this to me after the fact, right? We freaked out for about an hour. We didn't know. Did Mom actually make it through the Egyptian side? Because we heard about the bombing before we heard from Mom, right? Before we heard from Naela. So we are sitting here freaking out. Did she make it? Praying, inshallah, she crossed the border and she's in Egypt. I'm waiting for a phone call for her to connect to the cell towers in Egypt. She had roaming on at the time. No call from Mom. Eventually, my uncle tells me she didn't make it through, right? So, but alhamdulillah, she's alive. She comes back dodging, literally, she told me about 2 missiles. She was very close. The taxi cab was really close to about 2 missiles on her way back home. Now we're starting to work. Right now, I'm like, all right, this is serious. Mom's not, inshallah she gets out, but this requires some effort, right? So especially now that we know that Rafah border is closed. So immediately we start contacting our connections, people we know, anyone that can help, connecting us to our representatives. And, immediately we started filling out, they started telling us, fill out these crisis intake forms. They only had, in the crisis intake form, they only had options for Israel, right? So if you were an Israeli American citizen, then there was an option there. There was a radio button on the survey to select. It took a few days before, at least another 3-4 days. I filled it out as if she was an Israeli American. I was like, they told me, they're like, just fill it out. It's okay. Just select Israel. There's no other option. And so I started getting news about what basically the US government, the State Department, sending the Israeli American citizens, right? we're sending you charter flights, cruise ships. You'll have Wi-Fi and food on these cruise ships. You have 4 borders to exit from. Just whatever, right? They're getting the world. The Gazans, if you're in Gaza, basically, may Allah be with you, right? Just wait, just keep waiting. Stay close to the Rafah border. Eventually, Israel announces evacuation of the northern side, right? So 1.1 million people now have to evacuate and go south. So my mom is sitting there. At first they didn't want to go. And eventually they were like, no, we need to. My mom just couldn't handle it. I have videos of her recording the bombing, the fear that they're in. It was just unbelievable, right? And so immediately she was like, you guys, I don't want to die. Let's get out of here. So 50 people in the building, they all gather, they start to trickle down south, 5 groups of 5, 10. They secure a place down south for all of them to sort of live and stay together down south, and they head south. My wife's grandmother, who lives in the same street, unfortunately waited and regrets a little bit that she waited. Alhamdulillah, she's still alive. But here the bombing's going on, and she waited until sort of the last hour of that evacuation period, and bombs started raining down on her. And imagine having to deal with traffic, right? Because you've got hundreds of thousands of people going south, right? And Gaza is not, right? It's about, it's about 141 square miles, right? About 300 square kilometers. So you're talking a really small area of land, right? So all these people that need to go south, there was a lot of traffic to deal with. Anyway, State Department started helping. I live in Illinois, so I started contacting senators in Illinois, Senator Durbin, Tammy Duckworth, started contacting senators in California, Alex Padilla. Feinstein's office still hasn't been filled, right, after she passed away. And also contacting local congressmen as well, based on where I live and based on where my mother lives. And they were basically, they're sending us information that the State Department is sending us. They're sending messages, emails, but that's it. Pretty much, we keep getting the message, stay close to the Rafah border. If you feel it's safe, right, then as if they have some sort of algorithm, right, to predict where the missiles are going. But if you feel safe, stay close. And when we tell you, there'll be a small window of opportunity for you to get to the Rafah border and out. And I'm like, what kind of message is this, right? Like, if you feel safe, of course, bombs are now constantly dropping. So when my mom moved to the southern side, I no longer had connection with my mom. Mom's, not only her cell phone connection was not working, no internet. Now they have no electricity. And at the time, they had a well in the place, so they had some water, but now they're at a point. Last time I spoke to her about 12 hours ago, I spoke not to her, I spoke to my uncle, who was telling me, he sent a message telling me that he was able to reach my uncle, and they had to go back home to the northern side, risk their lives, and also to my uncle's, the homes that they left, to really gather whatever was left in the refrigerator, right? So they had to throw out all the bad stuff because there was no electricity, right? So milk, cheeses was going bad, obviously. And whatever they could grab that was still okay, they put in boxes and then head back south. Because again, now it's a matter of, it's a situation of food and water. So, it saddens me to hear this. Obviously, we are at a point now where we've been trying to reach our senators, our congressmen. There's so much support privately. No one is willing to sort of say anything or move from like a public perspective in a meaningful way. And all we're saying is that, the Israeli American citizen is I mean, equivalent, just, I mean, worthy of life, and so is the Palestinian American worthy of life. This is all we're saying right now, right? We're not even getting to the Palestinian, right, who is also worthy of life. And this is something I've told the news and media before, and I want to reiterate. We as US citizens, we still feel, alhamdulillah, there's some hope, right? And the hope is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, always. But we have some hope, right? We have, borders that are promising at least to open up for us, right? But the rest of the 2.3 million Palestinian, right, that are there, my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, my mother has 5 siblings there, right, and their children, right? And, they have no one willing to open up borders, right? They have nowhere to go. So it's really, my mother is sort of in this situation where it's wonderful. She's around family. She can hug them. She's around her mom, to make sure she's okay. At the same time, she's worried about life, about surviving, right? About seeing her children again, and her grandchildren. She has 8 grandkids. So, so right now we're at a point where, the State Department keeps telling us to wait. We can't wait. Food, water is running out. And so our attorney now is filing a lawsuit against the Biden administration. We feel that, it's an equal protection clause, right? So just like you were treating, it's not a political case. It's an equal protection case where just like you're treating, you're sending cruise ships and food and Wi-Fi to the Israeli citizens, and the Palestinian Americans are starving and, bombs are raining down on them. There's clearly one citizen is being treated, very differently from the other. So, right now it's a matter of, we need, another branch of government, the court system, to tell the other branch, right, our Biden administration, our State Department, really to compel them to act. This is what we need right now. And I think probably my biggest message during the day, as much as you can, organize to contact your representatives, contact your senators, tell them, not only about Naela Elshurafa, but about the other 500 to 600 US citizens trapped in Gaza, where, they keep telling us, the thing is, they keep telling my mom to go to the border. So she went now 4 times. I told you twice what happened. The 3rd time, the State Department told her to go. This is where the agreement fell between Egypt, Israel, and the US and Hamas, right? They needed aid to come in, right? And they're sort of saying, and Egypt is saying, we're not opening, right, the borders until you let aid in, and we get some of these injured children out, right, for treatment, for medical treatment. They have no medical aid. I mean, it's just, what's happening is unbelievable. You're seeing this, right? And so they held the US citizens, Canadians, Europeans, they held them there at the border all day long, hoping for the negotiations to work out, for them to open up to get aid in. And they end up going back home. The 4th attempt, they tell my mom to go. And then Israel bombs Rafah again while my mom's there. So, alhamdulillah, my mom made it back, but we're in a situation now where the State Department tells us to go, and then Israel bombs our US citizens. I mean, this is why, to me, with what happened with the hospital situation, it's very easy for me to believe, first of all, Hamas doesn't have the rockets to kill 500 people at once like that. And second of all, I mean, you have an entire population. I mean, not only do they not have the rockets to do this, but if they're willing, if the Israeli government's willing to bomb our own US citizens or Americans, I mean, I would not be surprised, right, that they did this to the Christian hospital yesterday. nonetheless, inshallah, you know, this is our story right now. This is my mother's story. I keep reiterating, bring mama back home, bring mama home, which is sort of our campaign for mama, inshallah, that we bring her home. We are connecting with a lot of other US citizens. It's challenging, right? It's challenging to speak up. I completely understand. Even in my position, it's really hard for me to speak up. But right now, it's really important for us to come together in this action, in this potentially a class action lawsuit. It's not yet a class action until we all come together. But inshallah, we hope to come together to really compel this administration to move, just like he moved for the Israeli American citizens, move for the Palestinian American citizens. And so this is where I'm at. I think during the day we need to act, and at night just a lot of prayer, a lot of dua. You know, this is because ultimately, right, like we heard from the Sheikh, I think it was Sheikh Wa'il, who recited this beautiful recitation in the beginning, wasta'inu bis-sabri was-salah, right, that we've got to hold on to patience, right, and prayer. And so I want to end, before I get some questions from you guys, with a dua. You know, this is probably one of my most favorite duas that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made when he lost hope. And for me, I go through these waves, right, where I'm like, alhamdulillah, there's some hope, something's about to happen, and then crash, right? So I'm sort of, it's you know, you get a lot of hope, she's about to get out, and then boom, right? Like, so it's just really challenging for me right now. And I keep remembering the dua of Ta'if of the Prophet ﷺ, right, where he lost his uncle, his wife, and at the time he traveled to Ta'if, right, to send that message, and he was also bruised and sent back home with blood. And I just want to make this dua, inshallah, all of us together. Allahumma ilayka ashku da'fi, ضعف قوتي وقلة حيلتي وهواني على الناس يا أرحم الراحمين أنت أرحم الراحمين أنت رب المستضعفين وأنت ربي إلى من تكلني إلى عدو يتجهمني أم إلى عدو ملكته أمري إن لم يكن بك غضب علي فلا أبالي ولكن عافيتك هي أوسع لي أعوذ بنور وجهك الذي أضاءت له السماوات والأرض وأشرقت له الظلمات وصلح عليه أمر الدنيا والآخرة أن ينزل بي غضبك أو يحل علي سخطك لك العتبى حتى ترضى ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. To you, my Lord, I complain of my weakness, lack of support, and the humiliation I am made to receive. Most compassionate and merciful, you are the Lord of the weak, and you are my Lord. To whom do you leave me? To a distant person who receives me with hostility, or to an enemy you have given power over me? As long as you are not displeased with me, I do not care what I face. I would, however, be much happier with your mercy. I seek refuge in the light of your face, by which all darkness is dispelled, and both this life and the life to come are put in their right course against incurring your wrath, or being the subject of your anger. To you I submit until I earn your pleasure. Everything is powerless without your support. Inshallah, may Allah bring back Mama home. May you all, a lot of you know her. Inshallah, you know what a beautiful, wonderful woman she is. Someone who's more than worthy of life. And inshallah, let's keep praying, right? We're approaching the nighttime. This is the time for prayer. So jazakumullah kul khair. Thank you for this beautiful invite. And keep during the morning with your representatives and senators, and at night with your prayers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And I'll take any questions if you have them. Ya Allah.
Inshallah, we can open it up. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box for Brother Nabil, inshallah. Sister Sarah, I'm not able to see the chat box. Are you able to monitor?
All right. I can read some of that. Brothers and sisters, we have an email, letter, phone statement you can copy and use. Contact information. Okay.
Is Brother Hussein still here? There was an earlier question for his mom. Brother Hussein, are you still here? I don't see you.
I think he's here. Brother Hussein?
Oh, yes, I see him. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was muted, so I'm still here.
Okay, now all the speakers are unmuted, inshallah, and so anybody can take turn answering the questions. So for Khalti, there was a question from Drea, and she was asking what was her favorite memory from before the invasion. Did Brother Hussein get the question?
Brother Hussein, are you there? Okay.
I'm sorry, I keep getting muted. So, okay, I'm here. I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you?
Sure. The question was, let me find it. Sorry. This question was from Sister Drea. What was your favorite memory from before the invasion? Oh, goodness.
Okay, I'm sorry. The question was for my mother, is this correct?
Correct. What was her favorite memory from before the invasion?
Unfortunately, I had to leave the house and I'm in front of the masjid because of the Isha prayer now, and she's not with me, but I'll make sure to ask her this question when I go back, and I'll send it to you guys.
How about you, Brother Hussein? Did you have a favorite memory from before this invasion?
Before this invasion, where in Palestine? I was born in Palestine, and my father moved us to Qatar when I was 2 years old. My first time ever visiting Palestine after that, it was 1987, and I swear to God, the first couple of days I saw the camp, and I just said to myself, our visit was gonna be for 2 weeks. I go, how in the heck am I gonna sit here or stay here for 2 weeks? Because just the infrastructure of the camp is unbelievable. And I just wanted to get out the second day that I arrived. Of course, because we had the luxury living in the US and in Qatar and all that stuff. But Wallahi al-Azim, the second or third day when I saw my relatives and the way they were welcoming me, and the way they were the women, they had really poor, they were very poor, and they had everybody wants to give you a gift and all that. For somehow there's a feeling that I can never explain. I felt like I belong. I felt like I don't want to leave again. So, and that just happened immediately the second or the third day. So it's hard to explain, but that's the memory that I always take with me. Also, I have visited Palestine the second time in 1996. And a true story, Wallah al-Azim. I made Umrah in 1994, and I went and I prayed in Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1996 when I visited the second time. And the memory I have in it's like, my cousins in Saudi Arabia, they took me to Al-Baqi', cemetery, and over there, like there was a smell. I think it's the smell of the blood of the shuhada. It was like a perfume, I swear to God. And then, like when I went to Al-Aqsa, and of course, there is a print for the Prophet Muhammad والسلام, before he got sent to heaven. The same smell, I smelled it over there. So it's really weird, but I sense the same smell in Al-Madinah and Al-Aqsa. So those are the two memories that I can share with you.
Brother Hossein, before you leave, you're leaving and coming back, or leaving?
They're about to pray right now, but I don't know how long you guys are gonna be on.
Inshallah, we'll take some more questions. Before you go, I just wanted to let you know, someone also, Brother Bassem, posted saying, please audio record all memories from Khalti, as this information is extremely helpful for the generation that has to sort this out. So I just wanted to let you know, inshallah, that was a comment. That was last.
Jazakallah khair, ya akh Bassem. Jazakallah khair.
We hope to have you back after prayer, inshallah. If anybody has questions for Brother Nabil and Sister Sebaah, who are still with us, and Sister Sebaah, I think Brother Nabil had asked you earlier if you could share a little bit about your thesis, inshallah, with us.
Okay, guys, don't mute yourself, the speakers, because then you have to wait for my permission. So just leave yourself unmuted. We'll deal with any background noise.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. So I'm still working on my prospectus right now, but I know that I want to focus on Palestinian authors who map Palestine from a place of intimate knowledge, from a place of lived experiences. And one thing that I would like to avoid doing, which I have been doing in the past, is focusing on this. What Shireen Saikali talks about is that, the Zionists can always act, but Palestinians are forced to only react. At least this is the dominant narrative. So one thing that I'm trying to do with my dissertation is to not focus on the reaction, but also focus on the action, focus on the celebration of life and celebration of existence and resistance. And this is one of the reasons why I've moved away from counter cartography and focusing more on indigenous ways of viewing space, and also recording that space. And this is something that I tried to do with my presentation, of exploring that it wasn't like a linear way of me thinking about Saris, my father's village, but rather it was through oral history, not once, but as multiple steps along the way, through physically returning, through talking with others, through reading, and also through comparative analysis of other villages, which are recorded in different ways. But yeah, so one thing I didn't get to finish, sorry, I'm always bad with time. But I just wanted to say that what we're seeing right now is an ongoing Nakba. It's an ongoing catastrophe, and it is because, as I tried to establish, that the Zionist state of Israel is founded on the dispossession of Palestinians, and its existence relies on that dispossession. But yeah, thank you so much.
A question also for Brother Nabil. Do your sister and her son have support in Camarillo, and could we visit them and do anything for them?
That's so sweet of you guys. Oh my gosh. The Santa Barbara community has been one of the most beautiful communities and still remains the most beautiful community. Actually, my sister, she's so wonderful. MashaAllah, she actually found the link, ISSB, and she's on right now. So and actually she has a picture of her son holding my daughter when she was younger. My sister is in Camarillo, Naela Elshurafa, and she just this morning, my brother arrived from Canada over there. But my brother was just telling me yesterday, like just entering the house and just sorry, we recently lost my father as well, so it's been just really hard. about a year ago. So now he kind of enters the home with, mom not there too. So it was very hard for him as well. So inshallah khair, we have to remain positive. So I'm like, during the day, this is my community, so I'm letting my emotions out. I feel like you guys are my family. But I usually try to put emotion aside, and start to act. I do want to say though that, talking about culture and the beauty of Gaza, I was there in 92 and 98, spent summers there. And, just we have such a rich, beautiful culture. My uncles taught me how to do debka and dance. It's a folklorian dance that people do in celebration, sometimes at weddings, etc. So there's just so much that they've given me, right? Just so many wonderful memories. So I just wanted to share that. And I appreciate Sebaah also studying this beautiful culture and celebrating these beautiful people. But yeah, happy to take on other questions.
That previous question was for Sister Martini, so Jazakallah khair for that. This question is from Sister Sebaah. How does your mother enter Gaza normally, and does she have to get a visa from Israel? Does she get interrogated?
Yeah, it's really challenging, right? So mom has a Hawiya, Palestinian Hawiya, which allows her to enter from the Rafah border at this point in time, right? So now she doesn't need approval from Israel to enter. However, right, it's challenging, right? Because she, as a Gazan citizen, can't enter the West Bank. So if she wants to visit Al-Quds, she can't. And I'll say this, I received a grant from the US government, USAID, to work with a university, Al-Najah, in the West Bank to improve and build their computer science program. And I remember working there and getting the Palestinian students here in Chicago. And then I was supposed to travel again over there just because my mom, without telling me, she filed for a Hawiya for me to make it easy for me to go to Gaza. I was like, Mom, why'd you do that? But anyways, so now I wasn't even able, to go to the West Bank, right? Even as a Jordanian citizen, we have the Jordanian citizenship as well. Through Jordan, we can't even enter, right? Once you're Gazan, that's it. You're trapped, right? You can only enter that small area and you're not considered really Palestinian, right? You're like, that's it. You're from Gaza. You can't even enter the West Bank and visit Al-Quds. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. There were some other questions about what lawsuit and what to do with your governor, with representatives. Is that right? Was there?
I didn't see that
Oh,
one.
from care of Mary. Yeah, how can we support the lawsuit? It's just in the beginning days, right? So I'll let you know as it unfolds. Right now, there's a couple that filed a lawsuit in Michigan, so we'll find out tomorrow if the court hears the case or dismisses it, right? Because there's so much they can say. Our attorney says, but alhamdulillah, there's some positive signs. So really, I mean, it's not that we want to sue the government this is not our goal. Our goal is really just to instead of just saying we support Israel, we support justice, right? We support liberty. We support, right, our beliefs, right, as a nation. So this is really what we want to bring our government's attention back to.
There's another question. If you could share, this is from Sister Sarah, if you could share some thoughts on the recent murder of the 6-year-old Palestinian American boy, Wadi al-Fayoumi.
Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Oh my gosh. So on top of everything we're dealing with, thank you for that question. We're having to deal with Wadia, who passed away, who's really only 20 minutes away from my home. So this is just like a nightmare for our community and my daughter's school. We spoke to the school about getting a guard because the parents are just scared, right? We put our hope and our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala نتوكل على Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at the same time, we want to take by the means. So we spoke to the school about setting up security cameras, etc. I've been so busy with media and the State Department and government and U.S. embassies. So I offered the first 2 days to actually go and guard my kids' school. So I'm like, listen, I have Wi-Fi in the car. I can work and take phone calls and do interviews there. So I gladly offered to do that until we get a guard or until the security system improves in our school, because there's fear. It's not just the Wadiya story. We have people, shouting at Muslims that are the women in the stores, telling them to go back to their country, telling them. I mean, it's like, really? Seriously? We're back to this again? I mean, so this is why it's so important that the rhetoric that comes from the media. And I think, Malcolm X had a beautiful quote that I wanted to memorize and remember, right? That the media is just so powerful. I'm paraphrasing. Media is so powerful, they can make the criminal look like the victim and the victim look like the criminal, right? And it's really, our messaging is so important, right? Because you have these people that take this message, right, and act upon this, right, with ignorance. And so, yeah, this has been a big scare for us. But inshallah khair, inshallah khair.
As we close, inshallah, we'll have a dua from Sheikh Wael, and then we'll close quickly afterwards, inshallah. Thank you everyone for staying until now. Go ahead, Sheikh Wael, please.
It's already on mute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, brothers and sisters, make dua with me, inshallah, sincerely. Directed to Qibla, inshallah, all, Bismillah Rabbil Alameen, asking Allah from your heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. So, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we are sure that, Alhamdulillah, most of us, Bismillah Rabbil Alameen, are closer to Allah, or all of us, Bismillah, inshallah, closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and might be our dua, inshallah, be accepted. So, make your dua from your heart, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during these moments to, Bismillah Rabbil Alameen, make us all, Bismillah Rabbil, excused and to relieve our brothers and sisters in Palestine from this crisis. So, Allahumma Rabbi laka alhamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika wa azim sultanik. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid. Ya Hannan ya Mannan ya Rahman ya Rahim ya dhal jalali wal ikram ya Hayyu ya Qayyum bi rahmatika nastaghith. نسألك يا الله اللهم صل على محمد في الأولين وصل على محمد في الآخرين وصل على محمد في كل وقت وحين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. اللهم يا ربنا يا رحمن نسألك باسمك الأعظم الذي إذا دعيت به أجبت وإذا سئلت به أعطيت أن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا ونور أبصارنا وذهاب همومنا وغمومنا وجلاء أحزاننا. اللهم اجعلنا من أهل القرآن. اللهم يا رب يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب، بعد صلاة العشاء وفي الثلث الأول من الليل ندعوك متضرعين إليك ليس لنا سواك، وأنت قلت في كتابك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. ندعوك يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم أن ترفع الغم عن أهلنا في فلسطين. اللهم اكشف عنهم ما ألم بهم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم انصرهم بمدد من عندك. اللهم أيدهم بعونك وتوفيقك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم يا أكرم الأكرمين ويا جبار السماوات والأرض، يا من تقول للشيء كن فيكون، لطفك بأهلنا اللهم الطف بالشيوخ والنساء والأطفال، والطف يا أرحم الراحمين بالشباب، الطف بمن حوصروا يا أرحم الراحمين، قل لهم خير عون ومديد يا كريم، إنك نعم المولى ونعم النصير. نسألك يا الله، نسألك غلبة ونصرا لأهلنا في فلسطين، اللهم ثبت أقدامهم، اللهم كن معهم، اللهم اشف مرضاهم وتقبل شهداءهم، اللهم إنا نستودعك الأقصى، نستودعك فلسطين وأهل القدس وغزة وكل فلسطين، يا من لا تضيع ودائعه، نسألك يا ربنا يا أرحم الراحمين، لا نملك إلا الدعاء وليس لنا سواك، فاقبل منا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم يا رب العالمين يا أرحم الراحمين، احمي أهلنا في فلسطين، اللهم داوي جرحاهم واشف مرضاهم، اللهم اكسهم من عري، اللهم أطعمهم من جوع، اللهم اعف عنا وعنهم وثبتهم يا أرحم الراحمين. ندعوك يا الله كما أمرتنا، فاستجب منا يا أرحم الراحمين كما وعدتنا، اللهم إنا نشكو إليك ضعف قوتنا وقلة حيلتنا وهواننا على الناس، إلى من تكلنا؟ إلى بعيد يتجهمنا أم إلى عدو ملكته أمرنا؟ إن لم يكن بك غضب علينا فلا نبالي، لك العتبى حتى ترضى، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم أثلج صدورنا، اللهم أثلج صدورنا بنصرة أهلنا وبحمايتهم وحفظهم يا أرحم الراحمين، اللهم كن معهم يا أكرم الأكرمين، اللهم احم أرواحهم، اللهم احم أرواحهم يا رب العالمين وتقبل شهداءهم يا ربنا، اللهم اعذرنا في تقصيرنا يا رب، لا نملك إلا التضرع والدعاء، فلا تؤاخذنا، اللهم لا تؤاخذنا يا كريم، اعف عنا وعنهم يا أرحم الراحمين، اللهم ثبتهم يا رب العالمين، اربط على قلوبهم وارزقهم الصبر والثبات يا أرحم الراحمين، اللهم واسي كل من فقد حبيب، كل من فقد أب أو أم أو أخ أو أخت يا أرحم الراحمين، كن معهم، اللهم املأ قلوبهم صبرا، اللهم املأ قلوبهم صدرا، أنزل عليهم السكينة والرحمات يا أكرم الأكرمين. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. جزاك الله خيرا. بارك الله فيك.
آمين. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Wael. Inshallah, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us. And as you know, heartbreaking as some of the stories are that we heard today, we hope everyone, inshallah, benefited from hearing from our brothers and sisters. And inshallah, we'll be sharing the recording on YouTube as well. So please stay tuned also for details of upcoming events put on by the Islamic Society of Santa Barbara. Inshallah, we hope to continue praying and working together for justice and liberation for Palestinians and all the oppressed around the world, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan for coming, and have a good night, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.